started a business in the middle of COVID.
How was that?
I literally created this whole document with all my marketing knowledge. B2C is selling to people and B2B is selling to people with responsibilities. People have a higher fear of messing up than missing out.
What are usually some of the first things you do when you enter a company? And how do you go about setting up a lean GTM motion?
I mean, first of all, when they start taking marketing seriously and really start building up this engine, I always tell them that it will take at least as long as the sales cycle to build up marketing to a point where you start seeing signals. Those are the steps you sort of need to help people navigate, right? Why is this something for me? Why are you the right solution and how is it going to work? The content formats change over time as the way people buy and people consume information changes. So a good marketer should always be aware of these changes in how people consume content and where people go for inspiration.
You started with building a brand from scratch, which a lot of companies don't do, right? They start with product or with a service and they just focus on that first and then the brand comes later. But for me, the feeling is that you've focused from the start really much on the brand. Why?
If you do not invest in brand and affinity, you will pay for it in acquisition cost every quarter.
All right, we are back with our latest episode of Grow with the Flow, a podcast by the Growth Syndicate. And today, Jolene and I are hosting Max van den Ingh. Thank you for joining us, Max.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And yes, so let's talk about Max. Max is the founder of Unmuted, a leading and award-winning B2B marketing agency. He was previously basically led growth at ShopPop and Mr. Green, and good friend of mine, and I can say very honestly, one of the best growth leaders I know, and one of the most creative B2B marketers I know. So super happy to have you on board, and thanks for taking the time. And let's dive straight in with the question we ask every guest when they start is, how did you get here? And I don't mean how did you get to this location? I mean, how did you end up starting your own agency and doing what you do today, and go as far back as you like? The origin story.
Sure. Thanks for the kind words and thanks for having me. I mean, I walked to the studio, which is kind of nice because my office is nearby. But let me take you back to where I started my career. It's about 10 years ago. I'm 31 years old now, and I started working at the age of 21, quite young for like the group of people I grew up with. Most of my friends started working when they were like 25, 26, doing their masters and everything. And I came across this startup when I was finishing my bachelor's, and they were doing amazing stuff. Everything was basically possible within that organization. A company called Mr. Green, leasing company specializing in electric vehicles, basically the first leasing company ever to have that position of only doing electric cars. That was back in 2014, 15, something like that. 14, I think, which was quite unique because electric mobility was in the early stages of going to market. Tesla just arrived a year prior to that, and people were very eager to drive that car also here in the Netherlands, but Tesla wasn't even here in the Netherlands. So when I got approached by the founder if I wanted to do an internship there, I was super excited to be able to work with Tesla, but then through Mr. Green. Did an internship there. Actually, after I think 1 or 2 months, my former boss called me and asked, like, can you maybe not do the internship, but just come and work for us full time within sales, because we have a lot of goals to meet, and we can really use you, and I'll pay you. And I was like, yeah, sure. So the writing a thesis thing that got delayed with I think 1.5 years. Still very happy that I did so, because I learned so much working at Mr. Green. I think also being a marketer, having started my career in sales, still helps me today. Not only because now as an agency owner, I need to sell, but also as a marketer, it's very important to understand how sales works so you can be aligned on things, but also understand what impact you can have as a marketer on that whole process. I did that at Mr. Green for about 1.5 years, 2 years, something like that. I literally sold cars. I used to be a car salesman, basically. Um, and the people, so what was quite interesting for me is like the people they sold cars to were mostly successful SMB entrepreneurs in the Netherlands who could afford leasing a car 1,500 euros a month, which is insanely expensive for a car. But everybody was so hyped up about Tesla, and there was a very low added tax for private usage. So that made the deal still quite, decent for them. So I spoke to like thousands of these sort of small business entrepreneurs, like business owners, entrepreneurs. And I quickly found out that when talking to them and just listening and understanding what their business is about, it was easier for me to sell to them because I created this connection with them. I understood their business. I was interested in what they were passionate about. I also found out, and I think that's where my love for B2B started. I found out that there's entrepreneurs who run businesses importing like small sinks, and they sell them to hotel chains, for example. So this guy who had like a deal with Hilton globally, selling like sinks, bathroom sinks to Hilton, and he was doing like 10 million a year with like 3 people in the office. So like, okay, that's legit something I did not know, and it's not fancy.
You
It
don't
doesn't
need a
have
brand for
it doesn't
that.
have a website, no brand. I was like, okay, but you're doing like big business. So that's where like the first sort of interest in that whole invisible world that is B2B really started. It's also the moment where I was like, okay, I'm selling to these people and literally calling them by phone, emailing them, creating quotes, text messaging, stuff like that. It was a very repetitive process. It was always pretty much the same, like which color car do you want, which battery pack, and how much kilometers or miles you're going to drive on a yearly basis. Okay, then this is your proposal, take it or leave it, essentially. So I thought, like, if we want to scale up this business, and I was very passionate about working at Mr. Green, if I want to scale up this business, I think we need to make the sales process more scalable, and adding more account managers or sales managers who work 9 to 5, like 40 hours a week, literally during the hours that most entrepreneurs are busy and not thinking about buying a new car. That's probably not going to be the most scalable solution. So this is when I first came across like the whole growth marketing, growth hacking, tools-based marketing movement. And I discovered a few tools that I connected, managed to set up sort of a funnel that eventually led to doing digital sales without me being part of that process. And that was also the moment where I went to my boss and told him like, hey, I think we can sell these contracts without me being on the phone or on email all the time. And I think that can be a lot more scalable for this business. And then he was kind of in shock to see that I literally signed a 100K contract with somebody I haven't spoken with. And I think that sort of kickstarted the digital transformation. And we hired a big agency, created this whole platform. We started hiring more people in growth, content, data science, design. We hired a CTO, like we went big. Created this first fully sort of self-serve leasing platform. Like there wasn't a leasing company on the planet that did it fully digitally, like without paperwork or without manual checks. So we were literally pioneering there. And then my role changed from sort of having to grow the company one by one to understanding how the platform could grow the company and how I could influence growth on the platform with marketing and with content and with branding and with excitement and with optimizing flows and all that stuff. So I really got to like touch or got to play around with this, basically platform. It was sort of, it wasn't really SaaS, but it was more like a platform. And I really enjoy that. It is, you also learn that it's a lot harder to convince someone of your opinion if you do not speak to them one-on-one, right? If you're talking to somebody one-on-one on a call, you can convince them, and like also with like what is it, like nonverbal communication, you can like really like look somebody in the eyes and they're like, oh yeah, I agree. But when you just write a good blog post, like you have no clue if after reading that blog post, they're like, I agree.
Yeah, did it register?
You have no clue. And maybe they just read 10 other blog posts and they basically don't care about yours. And they see a million other ads and they don't not care about yours. So you have to work so much harder to convince people with marketing, but it definitely does have that sort of one-to-many capability that sales basically doesn't have. So there's always sort of trade-offs. So this was a very interesting time for me in my early in my career. I really got to touch upon like first sales, then marketing, then product, leadership, like coming up with a new business model, basically, or a new go-to-market model for this company at a very young age, um, which made me feel very confident that working in tech and working at B2B and working in like an innovative workspace or work environment was the career that I want to pursue, and not go into like corporate, boring. You're one of 100,000 employees, and your impact is not going to really matter. Um, did that for about 4 years. Then I joined a company called ShopUp as a head of growth. They at that point raised 2 million in funding. They pivoted quite a few times, which is very interesting for me to learn about. With Mr. Green, it was just very clear what they did, and there was a lot of demand for it, so we could sell like crazy. But when you work at a startup that's like pre-product market fit, you have to pivot a few times. You really have to like work your ass off to even get like one small success in, and you need those successes to sort of keep going. So you're basically just working your ass off all the time. They ended up becoming a proposition that does basically the same as Klaviyo does for e-commerce, but then on WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. So abandoned cart notifications, sale alert notifications, back in stock alerts, like these shoes aren't available in your size. Okay, either leave your email address or register for a WhatsApp notification. That's basically what they did. Did that for 2 years, learned a lot about SaaS, learned a lot about working your way through pivots. And then,
Good to know.
yep. And then, yeah, after a few years there, COVID hit. I was working from home like most people. And I had been posting quite a bit on LinkedIn, had been speaking on various at various events, podcasts, etc. So already built a little bit of a personal brand for myself. And then all of a sudden, like my LinkedIn DMs started, like people started to appear there, like saying, like, "Hey, you're this guy who understands digital growth. We cannot send our sales reps to conferences anymore to sell and grow our business. What are our
Now what?
chances? Like, what can we do? Can you help us? Can you like, are you a consultant, or what are the possibilities?" And that was the moment where I was like, okay, there's demand for what I know. I really wanted to start a business one day, preferably a SaaS business, but I didn't have like the money to fund that journey. So I was like, okay, why don't I start with something that I think I can, and it's also something that I can sort of make money with from day one. And that's basically how Unmuted started.
So you started literally a business in the middle of COVID.
I started a business in the middle of COVID.
How was that?
It was nice. I think if COVID wasn't there, I didn't start a business, or I wouldn't have started a business. Maybe eventually, yes. But the fact that COVID was there really allowed me to have the focus you need on starting a business, right? So I live in Amsterdam. There's a lot of nice and social distraction in Amsterdam, right? There's so much things you can do, and
So much shit to
friends,
do.
right? You hop on your bicycle and you can go to a terrace and hang out with your friends. And especially in summer, like it's very hard to stay focused with all the fun things you can do, enjoying life in Amsterdam. And with COVID, basically the fun life as we knew it wasn't really there anymore. I was sitting at home. Of course, I was reading LinkedIn posts, and people were sharing stuff like, this is the time where you can sort of work on your side project, that when COVID is done, you can look back and really reap the benefits. And I was like, fuck yeah, right? I'm not going to like, okay, sure, I'm going to binge watch Netflix as well, but I'm also going to do something that I think is something of value. And it actually started a little bit before I started getting those outreaches on LinkedIn. So I was literally sitting at home. I was bored as fuck. I started thinking, why don't I I always wanted to start a Notion workspace. Notion was getting bigger and bigger by the time at that time, and I thought, why not write down all my knowledge about marketing and just create sort of a book or whatever, just
A
like
wiki,
a
a Mops
Wikipedia
wiki.
with my marketing knowledge. I was like, that could be fun, right? Like
Mm.
write down everything I know, all the framework, all the Google Docs I've ever created for launching doing a product launch or doing a messaging or a positioning document, all these things. YouTube videos I watched or podcasts I listened to. Like I literally created this whole document with all my marketing knowledge. So that was my first project, like to just keep me busy next to work. And then the outreach started happening, and then I
Were
started,
you at the time still working at,
yeah. But like, what do you do in the evening? What do you do in the
yeah,
weekend?
nothing.
There's like infinite amount of time all of a sudden if you don't leave the house ever, right? So I just spent that time like creating stuff. I like sort of side projects. I'm a 0 to 1 guy. I like kickstarting things and see where I can bring it. So that was like one thing. And then outreach started happening, and I started thinking, okay, this might be something I enjoy. So I signed a few contracts with them, quit my job, started working for those companies, and then immediately thought, why don't I hire people? I give them that marketing wiki of mine, and then they can do marketing the way I think marketing should be done. So that already like was a really nice piece of sort of IP, basically, that I already created that I could give to my first few employees so they could do marketing properly, in my opinion. So that's a little bit like the build up last 10 years of my career. And yeah, here we are, 15 people now.
Very nice. Yeah. So one of the things that for me stands out from the story, uh, I've been, you know, we've been friends through a big chunk of this journey. And I remember when you created that, well, essentially you created a self-service motion for a car leasing company. And
Correct.
built a product-led growth motion before people were really talking about product-led growth. People were still calling it the growth hack. And we met at a growth tribe event where I was working at the time, and we had a few drinks, and then drove in your Tesla. Well, I had a few drinks. You drove very responsibly. Um, but one of the things I remember is, that growth hack that I don't even think does it justice to call it a growth hack. It was just
Right.
a great PLG motion on top of a more traditional business model. We put that into I put that into one of the Growth Tribe courses. And to this day, anyone who's gone through a Growth Tribe program still calls you Max from Mr. Green. It's a badge you will wear forever. But it's one of those things where, when you hear about famous growth people, there's that thing they did that was just a game changer for their business. And I always wonder, how true is that? Like, how, is it just kind of a little bit of the legend that people like to build up? But in your case, it's actually true. You built this thing, it was hugely successful, and it essentially became that starting point of your entire marketing growth career.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty incredible. What I want to talk about is, you talked about your introduction to B2B, and how, this guy selling sinks to Hilton hotels. What is it that made you decide? I mean, the thing that you didn't mention is, the agency you founded is unmuted.com, for those of you who want to check it out and want to, reap the benefits directly. Um, you decided to position it from day one as a B2B marketing agency. Why did you decide to niche down on B2B? And how does B2B differ from B2C? Because you hear all kinds of things, but I'd love to hear it from you.
Yeah. So um, I think somehow there's some sort of emotional connection in my brain with B2B, because so when I was working at Mr. Green isn't like a pure B2B organization, right? They sell leasing cars, but they sell leasing cars to companies. I think they also do private lease now, but that wasn't there in the beginning. So they sell leasing cars to companies, but at the end of the day, it's a person who drives the car. So it's a little bit like B2B to C. Sometimes there were like larger organizations, and you had to deal with like I don't know what the like like internal leasing manager to sell a little bit like more contracts. So that made it a little bit more complex. Um, what I really enjoyed of working at Mr. Green, or like I'm very grateful for my time working at Mr. Green, and I don't think I would have had such a good time working at a large and established organization. So we all know, like we all know the big brands, right? We all see Coca-Cola, we see Heineken, we see Philips. Like those are the brands that advertise on TV, they advertise on billboards and everything. They get like so many people that apply there, and then a company like Mr. Green, they maybe get like one applicant, but the impact on your career working at a smaller company or a lesser known company can be often very big because you get to do a lot of things. Whereas with a bigger organization or a big consumer
You're
brand,
just a cog in the machine.
exactly.
And you see the struggle.
You see
I
this,
think
yeah,
it's like it's not just for the Philips ones, but also if you have these big, even scale ups, right, that grow massively, where you're also just there to join the ride, which is amazing, right? It's great to do. But I do think that if I look at my own experience, and I think it's quite similar to yours, it's you learn the most when there's struggle and
yeah,
when you go through 5 pivots
the chaos,
or the chaos or it's not going fast enough and you need to find without the money, you need to find ways to grow.
yeah. And so the thing is, like, I really thought it was so cool with all these sort of hidden companies because B2B is often so hidden, right? It's the world behind the world we see, right? It's you walk into a hotel lobby and they ask for your name and they type it into a hotel management system, but nobody is aware of that. The hotel had to pick or had to select 3 vendors they wanted to receive an offer from, which hotel management system they were going to use, and they had like a decision making process and all that stuff, and then ended up having a hotel management system right there in the lobby. But nobody's ever aware of the fact that that happened. But if that system is not there, the hotel would not function. So I got into that sort of, or got a peek into that world through my job in sales with Mr. Green, and I understood the whole world that was behind the world that we actually see and the world that gets so much attention. And I think that hidden world deserves some more attention too, because I think they are great companies. They support our whole world, and I think they also should get more uh, good
Love.
people
Yeah.
and love and good people that work there, because then they can thrive even more. So I think that's a little bit my sort of passion or like love for B2B started, that I think more people should know about these companies because often they're not well known brands.
And
One question from my end. What makes because probably some of the listeners here know that already, but also a lot don't. What makes B2B marketing different? Apart from like they're hidden and you need to do, but you're selling to businesses, right? There's a
Yeah.
whole different way of selling.
So I sometimes have like, when I give a talk, I start with the difference between B2C and B2B. And I think I stole this quote from someone on LinkedIn. I'm not sure, but B2C is selling to people and B2B is selling to people with responsibilities. And
I like that one.
right.
Yeah.
So when you buy a t-shirt on a timeline, you have a 30-day back refund policy, right? If you buy a 12-month 100K SaaS solution, there's not a refund period. As a matter of fact, if that solution turns out not to be the right solution, your ass is on the line, and people feel that responsibility. I just came back from a trip to the US, and I visited Spring, this event by Winter. And there was this woman who gave a keynote, and I don't know what her background was again, but she had a lot of like research in her presentation, which I always really like. And she told the crowd, I don't know what the statistic is anymore, but it was something like people have a higher fear of messing up than missing out in B2B, right? Because the decision they make, it can impact, like if all of a sudden need to go through change management because they need a new project management tool, and then the processes that were in place that weren't optimal but were definitely running the business, now all of a sudden it can get ugly real quick.
Yeah, most of the
So
time they're also not. You're
that's
not selling to
the
a CEO. You're selling to a
and that's what I mean with the people with a responsibility. And then
yeah,
there's a lot more, right? There's a budget, there's a timeline, there's a capability, there's
stakeholders.
yes,
yeah, and also, yeah, of course, with B2B, for me, one of the things that always stands out is that the person who makes the decision and the person who uses the product can be two different people. I think that's one of the key things. It depends. And again, B2B can range from very small, like lower end of the market or mid market, which can have more B2C dynamics, all the way to enterprise. I remember with my previous company, we were selling to companies, we were selling, 10K deals to companies where they were like, it costs us like 80K to implement this tool. That's the opportunity cost, because we have to go through the whole procurement. We have to choose it. We have to onboard hundreds of people. Just the cost of implementing the tool is more than the tool it costs.
Yeah.
And of course, that's an enterprise unique thing. What I thought was really interesting, you're talking about the hidden world of B2B, and I totally agree. But what's interesting is, and again, we're great at remembering kind of statistics, but not exactly where they're from or what they were. What is it? 70, 80% of the world economy is driven by B2B.
Yeah.
Like you said, the person who goes into the hotel room, that's one person buying one service.
Mm-hmm.
And then the hotel is operating on 20 to 100 suppliers. And people think, oh, well, Facebook is a B2C company. No, it's not. You're not the user. You're the product. The customer is the companies that pay for Facebook ads. Your data is the product. Google search, it's not a B2C company. Google's not B2C. It's B2B. You're the product. Your search behavior is the product. The people who buy Google ads, which are companies, they're the customer. So if you really strip away retail, your Nikes and your
whatever leisure and stuff like that,
when you strip that away, which if you look at the 100 biggest companies in the world, they don't make up the 100 biggest. They're not, it's mostly B2B companies at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Amazon may be one of those interesting ones. I don't actually know the exact numbers. I know that Google at one point, 97% of their income was through Google ads, or 90% plus. Amazon, I don't know how much it
there's
is.
a few, right? We have Walmart, we have Starbucks, we have Nike.
Yeah.
They're
Retail.
definitely, but they're mostly retail. Correct.
And even Amazon now with AWS and all the different services, they're going more into the B2B direction as well.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
One thing that stands out for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, with Unmuted, you support companies that very often are setting up their first marketing motions. They might have tested some things. Maybe they even have some marketers in-house, but they're definitely nearer the beginning of their marketing journey. So what are usually some of the first things you do when you enter a company? And, how do you go about setting up a lean GTM motion? Because you're not going after companies that have been doing this for years and have tons of money necessarily to invest in every single thing you want to do. So what are the first things you do, and how do you do this in kind of a lean yet effective way?
Yes. First of all, so we have two tracks within our company. One is for startups that want to build out like their first go-to-market engine with marketing being part of that. Before that, typically it was mostly founder-led sales or outbound. And then the second track is for scale-ups who already have a established go-to-market engine, but it's not operating at a level or efficiency or effectiveness that can help them grow as fast as they need. So we come in, analyze what's working and what's not working, improve what's not working, and add what they're not doing. So we have those two tracks. In all cases, we try to run a lean and efficient go-to-market engine. So often, especially the bigger organization scale-ups, they do so many things and they have no clue what is performing, what is driving anything. It's also very hard to say anything about individual programs, but still sometimes it feels like they're just operating a very heavy engine that takes a lot of effort to even operate, and clunky. So, but startups, they can definitely not afford running a heavy or a too heavy go-to-market engine, right? They need to be efficient. At the end of the day, your foundation is key. You need to start there, right? We don't have to talk about that in great lengths here on the podcast. I think most marketers will understand that you need to zoom in on your target audience and understand your ICP and understand.
You'd think we wouldn't have to
so
talk
many
about
people
this.
skip it still. It's just annoying. But we also always start with some sort of target account list, right? You want to know who are the 500 or 1,000 companies or even more or even less companies that you think have a really good fit with the product that you have right now. So many companies, they make the mistake that they want to start with a list of 10,000 organizations because they think, we can sell to them. But is your product the best offering for them right now? Or is it maybe a better timing in 1 or 2 years time when your product has developed a little bit more? So you want to create a segment of target accounts that you can really serve really well right now, because basically every account that you want to reach with content, with campaigns or whatever, it's going to cost you money.
Yeah.
It's that simple. So proposition, you need to understand like who's the ICP, where they're located, who are the, I don't know, 500 to 1,000 companies that you can sell your products or your services to.
Do you then actually make a list of those companies? Do you encourage them? Because it's actually quite an interesting practical exercise to go, give me like, at least even just 50 companies that you think if you could get to them in the right place in the right time, that they would definitely love your product.
Yeah, it's always a very interesting ask from us to them, because if they have it, it's always a very good signal for us, because then we know, okay, they're already like zooming in on that target audience. If we're the first to say to them they should have a list like that, it's sometimes a little bit worrisome. But if that's the case, we would help them build the list. There's many tools that you can use for that.
For example,
ranging from something like Build With to Zoom Info, or just purely LinkedIn, like Sales Nav, or searching basically for your ICP on LinkedIn search and scraping the results. Those types of things of places can help you come up with a list. List also doesn't have, in my opinion, especially in the like early phase, doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to like waste weeks of research on adding 5 more accounts to that list where you want to start.
No, but you don't want, a 4-person agency and Amazon on the same list. So that's kind of the goal, right? Is that you narrow the scope a bit.
Exactly.
I agree.
You need to understand, like, is my product a good fit for all of them? Or is there maybe a little bit of segmentation needed? Maybe there's a tier 1, 2, 3 structure. For startups, typically that's not even the case. They just need to like
a tier,
right? A tier like qualifies at least to certain criteria, and that's a starting point for us, really, because when we like that really helps keep things lean and efficient, because you want to focus on only those organizations and don't spend or waste money on doing campaigns that reaches companies that do not fit these criteria, right? The classic sort of spray and pray, or like very go big and then see what sticks and then optimize for that. I don't think that really works for high ACV SaaS.
No, because you end up in that discovery process spending so much money that you lose the buy-in before you ever get to the results. I've seen that so many times. You go, oh, let's just dump it all in and we see what comes out and then we can optimize. But by the time you can optimize, people are like, oh, you spent 6K already. That's
nothing came out.
Nothing came out. So we're done.
Yeah. So then we assess the product category. Is it mature or is it premature? If it's a mature category, sure, then it makes a lot of sense to put time and effort in demand capture tactics, something like Google Ads, or making sure you have, 10 pieces of blog content to cover your organic search. Make sure you have some retargeting in place. Make sure you're present on review platforms, those types of places where people go who are already starting their research to buying a tool. If the product category is more premature, you have to start building or creating demand, or at least brand awareness with these organizations to become top of mind, to make sure that you are part of their consideration list at the for that moment in the future where they start looking for solutions, right? So I think you have to respect the fact that most people and most businesses are already very busy doing a lot of stuff, and your proposition is not that exciting to them. Even though it can solve many of their problems, they also have like 500 other problems that they're solving right now. So you just need to gradually grow in their priority list, right? And that just takes time. I always like to see marketing as sort of the you're like a to-do list or the Asana for people that you want to market to, because they're not going to put you on their Asana as a top priority. So you need to be marketing to them in a frequent way, that you're just always there, always top of mind, always a little bit higher up the list than all the other problems. Because one day, the problem that you can solve or the challenge that you can help seize gets so big that they're like, okay, we need to do something right now. I know this company, and I also know this solution, and I know that consultant. So let's speak with these 3 like solutions or routes, and then take it from there. And that's how you win in the long run.
Creating demand.
Yeah.
One question on my end. So we spoke a little bit before the podcast started about this, like internal marketing, right? A lot of people don't CEOs, leadership, you name it, have no idea what marketing is. They sometimes think it's a switch you can flick. Sometimes they don't understand the value of a brand. Like, how did you, maybe both as an employee, but now definitely as a founder of an agency which costs money, how do you deal with that? Do you have certain tactics, or are there certain ways of handling these
Or
stakeholders?
or does the problem solve itself before they ever come to you?
Yeah, I mean, basically generating demo requests for our clients is the best way to market ourselves internally, but sometimes it takes a little bit
Exactly. And
longer,
marketing
right?
takes time,
I
right?
always tell founders, like, when you first, like, of course they shared a LinkedIn post, right? They did an interview maybe when they had a funding round, so they think they do marketing, but when they start taking marketing seriously and really start building up this engine, I always tell them that it will take at least as long as the sales cycle to build up marketing to a point where you start seeing signals. So let's say the sales cycle is 6 months. You at least need 6 months working on marketing, like dedicated, to start seeing like the early signals of
Mm.
your success. It's not something most companies want to hear. They want to hear leads tomorrow, but it is the reality, and we also need that mindset from our clients, because otherwise it's going to be a shitty collaboration for sure.
Mm.
um, what we believe in and have been believing in for a very long time now, and it's the evidence is becoming more clear, is observing signals that stuff is moving in the right direction, right? So back in the days, you could run Facebook ads, spend 30K a month, and then you got all these demo requests, and you can measure them like an e-commerce store, basically. But that doesn't happen anymore, because people are very skeptical towards marketing tactics. They're very aware of that. They do not want to talk to sales early in the process. They want to do their due diligence and their research in secrecy. And then when they're like aware, or when they really believe that you can probably help them out, that's when they reach out to you. So the moment they engage with your web form or with your sales team, it's becoming later and later. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen anymore, but you need to be, like, as a modern marketer, you need to be on top of all these channels and all these pieces of content where you can pick up signals that people are consuming that the right people or the right organizations are consuming your content and are interested in your content. And marketers should take those often sort of qualitative insights, or like there is data, but it isn't structured in a way that you can present it in an automatic report. So you need to pull it out, create a assumption what you think this signal means, and then what your action could be. And the action could be do nothing and wait. The action could also be tell your sales team that they connect with these people, or that they visit that event, or that they also rewatch the webinar that they watched. So when they reach out, the salesperson actually understands the topic that got them interested in the first place. So this whole signal-based selling, it's been growing in popularity recently. It's something that has been part of our service for literally from day one, because we're always very keen on spotting these signals. Yeah, it really helps with internal marketing.
Yeah, it's something that we find. I mean, obviously, what we do is very different from what you guys do. We try to dive deep into kind of some of the big, clunky, strategic factors for bigger companies very often. Um, One of the things that we do is, obviously, if we go dive deep into kind of an ICP and positioning exercise for a client, we can't promise a specific result because the activities that ensue depend entirely on them. So one of the things that works really well is talking about outcomes over outputs. So say, what are the kind of outcomes you want to achieve? And, saying, okay, at the end of working with us for the first, whatever, X amount of weeks, you're going to know who your ICP is. You're going to be totally confident about who you're selling to, how you're going to do that. And then I agree, early signals are so crucial. And especially signals are becoming more crucial now that demand generation has become a big focus for a lot of teams. And you talked about demand capture versus generating demand. Um, you guys are like the kings of demand gen, because
Thanks for that.
we look at what you guys do, and you guys have made a name for yourselves. People listen, people engage, and I love what you said about the priority list, because I once saw so I used to do talks in different places in Europe, and I'd often cross paths with Scott Tousley, who led growth at HubSpot, and he gave this really good analogy where he said, this is a B2C example, but B2B is not that different. If you want to buy something, you want to buy the best headphones, or you want to find the best place that sells pizza, or you want to buy the best software, there is an important factor where you start to research solutions and you start to compare them. But before that, most people make like a short list 80% off the top of their head. So when I want to buy a CRM for a new company, or for a company I work with, I don't research all the CRMs in the market. I go Pipedrive, HubSpot, Salesforce. That's it. And I think making it onto that short list is such an important thing. It's very similar to that priority list you're talking about. Is maybe they don't have the need now, but if they know Unmuted, they know what you guys offer, or they know the Growth Syndicate, whatever, when the need comes and they've already associated you with the expert on solving that need,
Correct.
then they know where to go. I want to talk practically about how do you go about generating demand. And when I asked you before, what are some things that you're particularly keen to talk about? One of the things we talked about is matching the right content to the right stage of, to the buyer's behavior, essentially, and what role that kind of plays. Because I think content, brand, awareness, these are all really key parts of demand gen. So practically speaking, how does this work? How do you see it?
Yeah. So first of all, I don't see it as a linear process. I think most marketers have started realizing that. I think leadership still struggles with the fact that it's not linear. They want to have that scalable process where they're like, okay, if we invest more in this, then we get more eyeballs, and then that's more leads, right? They love that equation. It just doesn't really work that way. I'm also not necessarily so you have like this top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel framework, right? It doesn't match how people buy. It is a framework that you can use to sort of organize your work as a marketer. I think that does make sense, right? On one hand, you want to make sure that people understand what you sell.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. I think companies make it so hard to understand for their audience what they actually sell, while you should always keep it just simple. You need to make sure that they care about you as the organization, that they trust you, which is why brand awareness and your reputation and affinity really matters. And they need to understand, like, okay, how does this work? Like, what's the way forward, right? What's the call? Like, you need a call to action. Like, what are the steps involved to get this? Like, is it going to be a very lengthy sales process and a very long implementation, uh, as you describe with 80K in real expenses, or is it something that I can use myself? So essentially, those are the steps you sort of need to help people navigate, right? Why is this something for me? Why are you the right solution? And how are we gonna, like, how is it gonna work? And around those three sort of pillars, you can start creating content. And at the end of the day, content is the sort of bridge between what you know and what you want your audience to know about you or about your product or about your solution. Because when they know about that stuff and when they see that vision that you have, that should be something that they then also get excited about and makes them investigate and maybe take action. But the way you sort of capture that interest from that audience, it is changing every year, basically every quarter, right? So I'll give you an example. Like 10 years ago, it made a lot of sense to write blog articles to share this knowledge. Also because most browsers and internet connections weren't that fast, right? Pages were literally loading section per section. Like, you would be crazy if you would only do video content in 2010 because your browser literally would not be able to support it.
Yeah.
Right. So it also makes sense to use a format that people can actually consume without much friction. But now, like, for people with like lower attention spans, having to read through a blog actually is a lot of friction for them because, like, they cannot concentrate for that long. They much rather watch a video. If they are on a train and they don't have audio, they want to read the subtitles, and the subtitles are even less of the actual content of what's being said because it's like only keywords of what's being said. So the content formats change over time as, like, the way people buy and people consume information changes. So a good marketer should always be aware of these changes in how people consume content and where people go for inspiration. I also believe that 10 years ago, people would type out their challenges in Google and would care about a long form blog article and would be very happy downloading your checklist to get that work done. And we're also very interested in the emails that you would then also send to them to educate them even further. That was a thing that worked really well. But companies started to sort of exploit that tactic in the worst way possible. And then people got very skeptical about the approach. And now they much rather like consume open content formats or follow people that are like creators on LinkedIn or on TikTok or have a Substack like you guys also have, because that's where a lot of like really valuable and firsthand experience is being shared without being it overly salesy.
Mm.
So I genuinely believe that if you create value for your audience through content, because you help them like get better at their job without asking that much for it in return, and you do that for a longer period of time consistently, that's how you grow in the perception, like as a valuable brand to them. And then one day, who
Yeah.
knows?
You mentioned brand, and I
Yeah.
think for me, like Unmuted has done an amazing job at building a brand. And you were, I have the feeling, but correct me if I'm wrong, very particular about that from the start. You started with building a brand from scratch, which a lot of companies don't do, right? They start with a product or with a service, and they just focus on that first, and then the brand comes later. But for me, the feeling is that you've focused from the start really much on the brand. Why?
Um, I love a good brand. I like building a good brand. Of course, I
But it
appreciate
takes time
it
and
takes
investment
time.
and money.
Yeah, I mean, so I just went to New York as well. I visited this event called Golden Hour by Audience Plus. They did a really cool event, and they had the CMO of Paddle give a talk, or like he was doing some sort of fireside chat.
Mm.
I don't know if you know Paddle, but like big SaaS company, fintech. You know this space, of course. And he had this quote, and I thought it was really strong. And he said, if you do not invest in brand and affinity, you will pay for it in acquisition cost every quarter. I thought that was so strong because every category, whether it's a product category or like an agency, like service provider category, everything is crowded, right? Everybody can make a proposition and say that they do X, Y, and Z and that they solve X, Y, and Z problem. But people at the end of the day, they still choose brands they trust, right? It's why we pick Coca-Cola if we get the choice. But all these tests say that we enjoy Pepsi Cola more.
Those tests are a scam.
They're a scam, but like whatever, you get the principle.
Makes the
Um,
point.
and I think it's the same with an agency or with a SaaS company, right? There will always be some other company that is also doing more or less the same thing. But if you have a good brand that people like and trust, it's more comfortable for them to buy from you.
And that actually is one of the things I wanted to ask you, because it's one of the things that are top of mind for me lately. So there's two questions that are going to come out of this.
Okay.
The first is channels, and we like to talk about growth levers because I'm a strong believer that there's not infinite channels. I think people talk a lot about channels, but there's a lot that needs to go into making a channel successful, from your positioning to having the ICP. It doesn't matter. Point is, when it comes to the channels you use or the things that are going to drive your growth, there's things you own and there's things you don't totally own. So what I mean by that is email is a channel that you own. If you have a list of 1,000 people who open every email you send and read your email, sure, the world email fucking infrastructure could collapse. Is not particularly likely. Whereas LinkedIn can make one algorithm change and your posts don't get reach anymore. How do you feel? And I guess this links to brand in the sense that brand is something you own. The channels through which you push the brand, you might not own, but you do own that brand at the end of the day. How do you feel about channels that you own versus channels that you don't own? How worried are you about that algorithm change on Google that kills your SEO, or that LinkedIn change that stops your posts from getting the reach, that whatever, these changes that really put you at risk, especially these days with LinkedIn? People are saying they're seeing volatility. Things that used to have good reach don't anymore, other way around. Like, how do you look at this?
Yeah, I think it's actually a really I didn't really think of it that way, how you put it, that indeed your brand is something you own and you control, right? There's no algorithm that changes your brand basically, because it's yours. You create it, you own it. So I think that's a really spot on observation. I think more companies should realize that, because I know that a lot of companies are always struggling with the sort of rented audience versus owned audience debate. Like, are we going to operate mostly on social channels where we can get a lot of awareness, but our strategy cannot work anymore tomorrow if they change the algorithm? Versus, are we going to grow our email base, or are we going to focus on creating a Slack community or something else that we really own? At the end of the day, you always need to do a little bit of both. When I was at Golden Hour, there were actually quite a few very interesting talks about this very topic. So some of my ideas here or thoughts are definitely from attending that event. But there was this really nice model where you have where they showcased your rented audience, your owned audience, and your monetized audience. And it was a concept that's mainly being uh, yeah, sort of done in B2C, but it also works in B2B. Like, you always want to like grab attention on places where you can get it,
Yeah.
right? So channels always like come and go basically, and when they're growing, then you need to like monetize on that by grabbing the attention, but also having a CTA for people to join your newsletter or your Substack or your community, or join an event, buy a ticket for stuff like that. And then over time, you can also monetize them. And the people that you monetize, you can also maybe leverage in the rented spaces, because they can become like a referral to you, or they can be an advocate, or they can like share their experience working directly with you. And then that can help you gain attention. But I mean, I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn, that's for sure. We have steadily built up an email list as well. People subscribe to listen to our podcast. We have a few subscribers every week. It's no crazy numbers, but it's getting bigger and bigger, and it's a channel indeed we own. So I'm quite happy with that. I guess in all cases, especially if you operate like early stage marketing, I would always start with a channel that can give you the traction, like most traction in the shortest amount of time, because you just need attention to go into the next phase. But the minute you can start investing in one or two, and not more than that, but one or two like diversified marketing tactics. So we also do a little bit of SEO at Unmuted. We write a few blogs every, I don't know, month or quarter, about the most important topics that evolve around our work. And yeah, we have generated a few leads from people that literally write out in the "How did you hear about us?" field, that they did a Google search, or they did a search to B2B marketing agencies. So it's working for us as well. But LinkedIn is definitely the biggest driver. So yeah, if they would change the algorithm in a crazy way tomorrow, I'm toast.
But also, people still know your brand. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's not in their interest to change. If they change LinkedIn so radically that older people that make LinkedIn stop using it, then the whole platform would collapse. So it's not really in their interest. However, yeah, I think that's where the brand comes into play. And this feeds into the second question I had there, which was AI. There's all kinds of opinions about AI. This could be a whole different podcast, so I want to keep it relatively brief. But one of the things you're seeing is that with AI comes more saturation. More people can create content, more people can post, more people can do stuff. What is your view? Do you think that AI is going to ruin some of these channels? Or do you think that AI is going to be just make it more important to stand out and be different?
Yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity to just create high quality content fueled with expert insights. And that's a very easy way to stand out, because most people are just going to use AI in a very shitty way, just like they used gating ebooks in a very shitty way. They were only thinking about like, how can we do the bare minimum to execute the tactic so we can get the outcome, versus how can we create something that people actually love and care, so they naturally come to us because they think it's valuable.
Yeah, cool. Then
Next
part, we got some fixed questions we ask all our guests. Ideas in the future to be able to compare some of these. These are not rapid fire, but they're relatively short form. So quick questions with quick responses.
Cool.
Jolene, you can
Let's
take
get
over.
started. So the first one is, what controversial opinion do you have? And not your political views. So it would be good if it's slightly within the space, but is there something within the space where you're like, I'm a very different opinion than a lot of other people?
I'm not sure if it's controversial because it's a topic that a lot of people are very outspoken on, but I believe that many SaaS companies can grow very successfully without ever doing outbound sales.
Ooh,
High ACV SaaS companies.
Nice.
nice. I like that one. What is, if you look at your own path and your own, like from Unmuted to Mr. Green, what is your biggest or favorite fail? Like if you look back at it, it's like, oh, I did this and it, nope. But I'm actually quite proud of it that I did because I learned a lot from it.
So there's two. I know that with Mr. Green, one time or at some time we spent about 30,000 euros on Facebook ads, and it generated like hundreds of quote requests, but they never converted. So people were just curious about the price, probably. So that was a very expensive experiment. And more recently, so we are 100% inbound at Unmuted. We don't do outbound, which is also why I believe in this controversial opinion. Um, I went on a holiday, and I'm still the one that replies to all inbound like requests.
After
And
4 years.
yes, I still do that. I enjoy those conversations. They only end up in my email address. So the whole marketing operations behind it is not set up in a way I would set it up for my clients. So we do not send an automated thank you email with like, there's the next steps. There's no automatic email scheduling tool. Like there's literally nothing. There's only a thank you page, and then I get an email in my inbox. And I was out on a holiday, and then it turns out that during that period, we got literally the biggest request ever from a SaaS organization. Like I'm talking like next level, big, and then did not reply to them. And I had to find out because they messaged me on LinkedIn weeks after saying like, hey, we were curious if you were still interested in this opportunity because we didn't hear back from you. And then I went looking in my inbox, and I found out I got back from my holiday, inbox piled up. I was just working my way through the inbox as fast as possible. I just archived it.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
good learning though.
Yes. Practice what you preach.
Nice. Who do you learn from the most? That can be a talk you listen to, or content you consume, or a person that you follow, or a couple of people.
So learning for us is very easy because we work with a bunch of SaaS companies, and we have a lot of smart people that do marketing for them, and they are pioneering literally every day for them. So our Slack workspace is like an insane source of learnings. We have multiple dedicated channels that really push ourselves to share learnings because they all learn, and what they choose to share is already a curated form of learning. So what's being shared in our Slack's workspace, those are really the gems. And LinkedIn feed helps me learn a lot.
Nice. I like the Slack one. I think that's great. What's your favorite marketing growth tool in 2024? What's the tool you use the most? Maybe it's 2023, you still use it, but like, what's a tool you really like using? Can be both in work, but also like maybe a to-do list or something you use yourself.
Where I used to use like hundreds of tools back in the days, I almost use zero tools today. So we have HubSpot. It's great. Just keep track of my deals. That's basically it. Since my life as a founder is a lot about productivity and efficiency, Loom is really my go-to tool to get anything done,
Okay.
as like both internally as well as during sales. So Loom is a pretty solid tool for me right now.
Nice. Cool. Then
I'm going to intercept
All right.
with new format.
oh yeah.
New format.
So again, on the brief side, we like to, from here on out, for every guest, pull up a LinkedIn post and hear a little bit of the context around the story behind it, and basically explain that post. And in this case, the post we pulled up is you announcing your new venture known as Gately, suspiciously close to April 1st. It went, you could say it went pretty viral. Like in terms of LinkedIn B2B terms, it went viral. People talked about it a lot. It was hilarious. Lots of people believed it. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we always love a good April Fool's prank over at Unmuted. I think our team has a lot of fun on a daily basis. I think it's a secret ingredient to doing cool marketing. So throughout the year, we always have these ideas like over lunch or over drinks or whenever that we could do with April Fools. We literally just write them down in Notion and then they pop up like a month prior to 1st of April. Last year, we had so many ideas that we turned April Fools in April Fools week because we did like 5 or 6 jokes on our LinkedIn company page because we just had too many ideas. But then this time around, so we are very much against gating content, right? We think it's bad practice. We love open content formats. If the content is good, share it as open as you can so more people can read it, consume it, and change their minds, and maybe they want to work with you. So that's what we believe in. So we thought, why don't we start a B2B SaaS company, which is also our ICP, that sells gated content software. So complete opposite of what we believe in at Unmuted. Because we thought it's not only hilarious and people and marketers will love it, it will also help us position ourselves as being very much against that. So much so that we
Took the piss.
we literally took the piss, created a web page 2010 style or like 1995 style. We went very far. We recorded a whole product launch video. We shot this is the Meet the Founders picture. We changed our LinkedIn jobs simultaneously. Yeah, it was just one big joke, but also with a little bit of a sort of way to position ourselves, who we actually are and what we are capable of. And I also found the exercise very valuable for our team because they really went through the exact process all our clients went through in the early stage of their company launching an organization. So it was a really nice moment, and energy was so high in
It
the
was
weeks prior.
amazing.
Yeah.
It was
You guys,
one of the funniest things
did you guys
we've
get it
seen.
immediately, or like
Yes.
you're like, okay, this
yes.
is a joke?
We
Yeah.
know you well enough by now, Max. Like we
Okay.
knew that wasn't.
Okay.
No, it was. There's not a lot of fun content. Like there's a lot of memes, but they're like, oh yeah, and then you go to the next meme.
Yeah.
But this was really
You go to the next
this.
meme.
Yeah, that's a bit what every type of short form content is nowadays. But it was really. I was like, yes, this is something different. I
Yeah, it
like
was great.
Great.
Very funny.
Facepalm, kudos.
Yeah, this is a segment where we all call out a kudos of the week and a facepalm of the week. It doesn't have to be from that week. The risk is always, we don't align on these ahead of time. So
Yeah.
sometimes somebody steals someone else's kudos. I'm looking at Clement here behind the scenes. And then you have to think of one on the spot. Should I go first?
Yeah, you can. Let's go for it.
My kudos of the week. So I facepalmed LinkedIn in the last episode because of the changing of the services set up and some of the design of the profile, but I'm going to give them a kudos on rolling out the view my blog, view my website link underneath the profile on the business accounts, because I think it's smart. I think LinkedIn have become aware of the fact that, and for sure this is going to saturate like everything else, but LinkedIn have become aware of the fact that, they're only tapping into a small part of the audience with the ads. LinkedIn ads are notoriously expensive, and you need quite a lot of expertise to make them work, especially in a B2B context. And they've given people a real reason to upgrade from, premium career to premium business. And I think from their end, not necessarily from a user's perspective, but from a monetization perspective, when I see how many people have it, I think it probably brought in a bit of cash. So I'll give them kudos for that one. And then my facepalm goes to 6 cents. There was, I'm looking at Max's face. Was that yours? But I have a bit of a nuanced opinion here. But so Adam Robinson, whom I do respect as, a founder who's built a name for himself and, good content and building a good brand. I do think, so he has actually published a cease and desist letter. Essentially, 6 cents. It's another company threatened to sue him for creating an account on 6 cents to kind of check them out. And then later, it turned out that they'd done the same thing to him. I think those kind of practices of trying to sue and bully other companies, Clement and I worked at a company in the past where, the company almost didn't raise their Series C because they were sued on some bullshit grounds by another company. I think those are stupid tactics, and they say a lot more about the incompetence of a company than anything else. I do think Adam's milking it to a huge extent, and I can't kind of comment on the ethics of individual-based unmasking. That's a different topic. But I was also like surprised by how many people commented saying, "Yeah, if you create an account with your competitor, that's so unethical." I'm like, "What the fuck? Like competitor
Yeah.
analysis is like the
Did
most
they
bog
just?
standard
But he
marketing
paid
practice in the world."
also,
And he
right?
paid.
He paid. They
Yeah,
had a
but it's
contract, and then the
Plus,
contract went up.
since create an account for RB2B
Yeah.
like 17 days prior to them
Yeah,
setting the
exactly. Exactly. So, you can have whatever opinion you like on RB2B. You can have whatever opinion you like on the drama that is unfolding on LinkedIn. However, I was just surprised by how many people thought it was unethical in the first place to create, like, if I'm creating a SaaS, the first thing I'm going to fucking do is create accounts on all the other companies in the space to understand, to learn more about these companies, to learn how they work. It's standard. And you are welcome to ban competitors from your platform if you want. But if you're that focused on your competitors, you're not going to be that successful anyways. So that's my facepalm of the week.
I agree.
Jillian.
Me? Ooh, my kudos. Actually, we went to a talk at SaaS Talk Local. Not that's not kudos. Is not SaaS Talk Local. You already gave that. But for me, I love HR tech. It's for me a sweet passion, which always been. Started in praise, and I actually want to give a kudo to Lapaya, their HR education platform.
That was my kudos in the last episode.
Was it?
Yep.
Gee, we're doing
But it's
too many
okay.
because, I can also do one for Personio. Actually, I think both of them are doing a great job. I think it's really hard. HR is such a hard space to sell, and that's what the thing that I wanted to focus on, because it's you changing people's behaviors, and of course, there's a lot of tools out there that do that. But apart from changing a process within an organization, you're changing how people should behave towards each other most of the times with giving feedback or rounds of performance reviews, these kind of things. And it's really hard to they associate the behavior with your tool. So if they don't change the behavior, your tool is crap, which a lot of times is not the case, because it comes from leadership and the culture should change. So for me, then I will give kudo to Personio, because I think they're building a really great brand with a lot of value. For me, my face bomb. Yeah, it's actually quite hard. I don't want to go to LinkedIn again, but actually, I am, because I did a post around this as well. I got an email around my top picks of companies that I should work for, top picks of companies that are positions I should apply to. And the first one was part-time employee at Lidl to restock their supplies, which was based on my experience. Or the other one was CTO, which I've never had any experience with doing anything engineering. And the other one was
Hidden talents.
The other one was a carer for dolphins and whales in Italy. So I was like, you have such a big platform, so much money, so much algorithms. The only thing you could do is at least give me some picks based on my experience. So it was very funny. It created actually a post with a lot of traction for me. So it was good content, but I was surprised. I was like, this is what's been your bread and butter for so long. If you can't give me suggestions that I actually should reply to, then something's up.
Well, if you ever end up in a role where you are engineering the restocking of dolphin shelves, the joke will be on you.
Probably.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. I mean, kudos or shout out to, I guess, all marketing teams or organizations that are like 1-2 people and push out more content than 100 people marketing team do. It is just bonkers sometimes to see how many resources big tech companies have. And then you also see the output and you're like, what are you all doing on a daily basis? I think one example is Audience Plus, but also Hockey Stack. They're companies with like 1 or 2 full-time marketers, and they just create so much content and so much and good content and valuable content. Like it really resonates with the community. And then when you put that side by side with what some, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 people marketing teams put out, and I'm like, it's just a joke. So kudos if you are such a team, and keep it like that. Why do you need more, right?
Just hire a muted.
It works. It works.
I don't know. Facepalm. I mean, in general, using ChatGPT for LinkedIn anything. So the LinkedIn comments generated by ChatGPT, massive facepalm. But just this week, I saw again, founder just started posting on LinkedIn with the clear ChatGPT formatting of like capitalized letters, usage of emojis, and capitalized hashtags and everything. And like, in this day and age and in this daunting time, businesses have to thrive through. I'm like, you are literally throwing away the credibility that you have built up over the years as a founder by posting that bullshit type of content. It is so cheap. And I just don't get it, because somehow you were bought into the concept of sharing content on LinkedIn to grow your business. And then you decided to execute it in such a cheap way. I hate it.
Here, here.
Absolutely.
All right.
Cool. Last but not least.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
All right. Bring it up. Is it yes and no? Or
it's like... yes or no, or either or.
Okay.
Don't explain your answers, basically.
The first one is to get into B2C or B2B?
B2B.
Mid-market versus enterprise?
Either or. Can't be turning away some of those clients, eh?
Spring or the next web?
Spring.
Spring or golden hour?
Spring.
3 people everyone should follow.
I think Dave Gerhardt is a person I've been following for quite some time. I really enjoy his content. I think you should definitely follow somebody like Chris Walker or Gaetano Di Nardi as well. They also like put out really nice provocative content. I really enjoy that. And as a matter of fact, I also really enjoy following Elena Verna. Like, there's a whole story there, which we're not going to go into the details of that story, but I think she puts out some amazing content too.
Although 99.9% of it is memes these days.
I love a good meme.
Fair enough.
One important attribute you need to have to start your own company.
You have to be able to push through and see the
resilience.
Resilience. Not give up. Keep going.
Cool. Expanding existing accounts or acquiring new clients?
Acquiring new clients, in a way.
If you were starting unmuted again from scratch, what is one thing you would do differently?
I would love to have found an operational person sooner. Still haven't found it yet, so if you're looking.
So you don't have to answer all these emails when you're on holiday.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very nice. Oh,
That's
Max,
it.
Thanks a lot. Before we call this a day, is there anything you want to share? Anything you want to plug? Anything you're working on? Just go. The audience is yours.
Oh, wow. No pressure there. I guess just follow our podcast, House of Demand, weekly show. Jonas and I talk about modern B2B SaaS marketing. We have a new topic every week. There's a few nice sections, different formats within the show. If you're keen on learning about SaaS marketing, if you run a SaaS business and you want to understand where marketing is going next, listen to the show. Follow Jonas and myself on LinkedIn, because we share short clips there as well if you don't have 30 minutes per week to listen to the episode. So just listen to the show, and then you'll get to know our company too.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Links to everything will be in the show notes. And of course, subscribe to the podcast, recommend to your friends, give us a rating, all that stuff. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Peace.